Hi. So this is a review of The Batman, which is the name of the new Batman movie. They put the in front of it. It's not just Batman, it is The Batman. It is the one directed by, this has just come out in 2022 to date this, if you're watching this in the future. This is came out in 2022, directed by Matt Reeves, starring Robert Pattinson as the Batman. Which I admit I was a little bit doubtful at first that Pattinson was the right person to play Batman. I like Pattinson as an actor. I like some of the roles that he has played, but he is not to be prejudiced, but he is a bit effeminate. Batman has typically been kind of a, people like Ben Affleck and Christian Bale at least were, you might say, a little bit macho, a little bit more of the soldier type, I guess. I always thought of Pattinson as more as the artsy kind of person, and that's partly because he played Salvador Dali in a gay romance, in a movie about the gay romance between Salvador Dali and Federico Garcia Lorca, where he is very artsy, fartsy, kind of like me. And so yeah, I was a little bit, when I heard people were complaining about that, I was like, yeah, I can kind of see your concern. Of course, I think theirs was more the fact that he was at Twilight. He was in Twilight, which I don't really care too much about. But he did good. I was impressed. I was pleasantly surprised by what he did. My overall take on the movie is that this was the Batman movie that I wanted to see many years ago when I first heard that a Batman movie was coming out. When I think it was Tim Burton who made the first Batman movie back in the early 1990s. Maybe it was late 80s, I'm not sure. But when I heard that was coming out, I was super excited. And I was also disappointed when I saw it, and I've been disappointed pretty much by every Batman since. And I felt like they just didn't capture the psychological depth, or the kind of psychological aspect of the Batman story that I felt like it needed. From a very early age, I remember being like, not even a teenager yet, like maybe 5 or 6 years old, I had a Batman comic. And it scared me. I remember looking at it and feeling like Batman was kind of, he wasn't just a hero. He was like this, on this border between being a hero and a monster. I almost said a villain, but that's not really the right word for what I'm looking for. But he was kind of in between like a hero and a monster. This comic had portrayed him to be intimidating, but it also kind of portrayed him in this very much like psychologically disturbed way. I remember there was one, like, I don't know what you call it, a panel in the comic book where he is shown as kind of losing his mind, and I liked that about it. I liked that there was this kind of idea that Bruce Wayne is mentally disturbed, and that's kind of why I liked it in the past. Like, when I was young, I didn't realize that Bruce Wayne's parents had been killed. I didn't see that until I saw the movie, and I actually liked that. If this was real life, I would say that's not very, like, poor. That's a tragedy, but for his story, I feel like that helps give it some kind of depth, because when people have kind of suffered in some way, it does kind of create this impetus for this like wrestling with uh, the darkness within. And that's kind of how I see Batman, is that he's not just wrestling with the criminals out on the street, but he is wrestling with the darkness within. But yeah, overall, I would say, just as a kind of general review, or just a general kind of first impression, I like the movie. I especially in the context of all the previous Batman movies and other superhero movies, including the Marvel stuff. I thought it was really it was more believable than most comic book movies, and not just more believable because it was more believable, but not just because of that. It was more a general audience movie than a lot of comic book movies. Like, you don't have to be a comic book fan to enjoy this movie, I think. There were things that I didn't like about the movie, and maybe I should go into that before I get into what I do like, because what I do like outweighs what I don't like. What I don't like is a little bit of nitpicking. Uh, some of it is just typical comic book story nitpick stuff. One of the things I don't like, for example, is that the whole Batman getting shot with guns and just being okay. Like, he's just basically just bulletproof through the entire movie. He is wearing bulletproof armor, but of course the lower half of his face is totally exposed, and it just never, apparently, it never occurs to anybody to shoot him in the face until it does occur to somebody to shoot him in the face, and miraculously he is saved. This is the sort of thing that makes me not like movies in general, especially comic book movies. This kind of plot armor type stuff. If this were Game of Thrones, Batman would have died in the very beginning of the movie. But yeah, so that stuff like that. Some of the plot stuff I didn't really like partly because it kind of messed up what the characters were doing, and specifically on that, I did not like how they had the Riddler have these kind of certain motives, and it seemed clear what the Riddler was up to, what he was doing, and then at the very end, not at the very end, but in the last 30 minutes or so, from the time he's captured uh, forward, it just seemed like, what the fuck just happened? For one, is why did he give himself up? It seemed quite clear that he was kind of the one in control through the entire movie, that he was the one who was on top of things, and that he could have accomplished all of his goals without anybody even, if he'd wanted to, he could have done all this without anybody even knowing that he existed. Yet he made himself known, and then when it seemed to be all said and done, once it seemed like he had accomplished his ultimate goal, then he just gives himself up. Yeah, but then after he gives himself up, then you discover that he had other goals, which don't seem at all congruent with what was, the first majority of the movie. So that was a little bit disconcerting, a little bit of I describe it as whiplash. It's like, you're driving down the road and all of a sudden you're like, what the fuck? Yeah. That it was bothersome. For one, it didn't make sense with what the Riddler was doing. It seemed that the Riddler had his motives, and they were quite clear, that he was trying to rid Gotham of these corrupt. That he was taking out if you think of like a crime or evil as like a snake, he was going for the head of the snake. He was trying to take out these big characters, and then they catch him, and all of a sudden he just becomes this kind of angry god who wants to wipe out everybody on the planet. What else? The romance between Batman and Catwoman was not. I'm assuming that was partly fan service, that they were basically just sticking with comic books on that one, or I'm not sure about the Batman and Catwoman in comic books. I have not read any Batman comic books in which Catwoman appears, so I don't know what their story is in that context. But in this movie, it just felt that like that was another thing that was just kind of contrived. It just felt not. People say that they had chemistry on screen, and I would say to some extent the actors themselves did. I mean, they're both just attractive characters. Robert Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz, who is she? Is she Lenny Kravitz's daughter? I don't know. I don't know many Kravitzes. But yeah, they were kind of they were a cute couple. But as far as the actual characters within the movie, they really just the only thing they had in common is that they were both kind of troubled youths. That they were both they came from kind of traumatic childhoods, that kind of thing. That was really the only thing they had kind of in common, and it just seemed like a very convenient kind of romance that kind of came out of that. Like it just wasn't. I would describe it as a flash in the pan romance. If it was real life, I would say this is not going to amount to anything. Because it just never seemed like, you know, there are times in your life when you see an attractive girl and you're like, oh, she's attractive, and but that's not enough for for a romance. But anyways. Yeah, so I didn't really care for that part. Let's see. People have complained that this is a SJW woke movie. I actually watched Ben Shapiro's review of this movie, in which he claims that it is an anti-white, anti-Batman movie. That he says the creators hated Batman in this movie, which I don't agree with any of that. I don't know if I need to even address that, because it's just that just seems like grasping for straws. The only line in the movie that I thought was kind of an SJW line is when Catwoman uses the phrase "white privileged." I don't forget what she follows that with, white privileged something. Which to me was not a statement for the movie itself. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes characters in movies say things which they're not really speaking on behalf of the creators of the movie. They're just speaking on behalf of the character, which I think is where some people might get confused or think that this is an SJW movie because Catwoman uses this white privileged phrase. But I don't agree with that. That was, to me, just Catwoman's character being Catwoman's character. She was a poor woman of color who was kind of forced to a life of crime to get by. And so it makes sense for her character to have that perspective. But in that scene where Catwoman is kind of criticizing these rich white people who are... I'm having trouble remembering exactly what her point was, but I do. It kind of the irony of that statement was that she was criticizing Bruce Wayne, and she was doing it to Batman. So she's basically talking shit about Batman, or talking shit about Bruce Wayne to Batman, and doesn't realize who she's talking to. So she was criticizing kind of these rich white people in general, but of course Bruce Wayne is in that group. And I thought that was actually kind of more a point opposite of the SJW point, because this also happens, the similar thing happens when he's talking to the mayoral candidate. I believe her name is Bella Real, who is a black woman, who sees Bruce Wayne at a funeral and mentions to him that he's not doing anything. She mentions to him that his parents were philanthropists who did a lot through donations and charity. And as far as she's concerned, he's not doing anything, which is, of course, to me, that's a very comedic thing to say because she does not know that Bruce Wayne is Batman. She does not see all the shit that he's enduring to try to help the city, which if you look at that from kind of a political perspective about kind of like white privilege, I mean, it is in a way that to me is like suggesting to people of color out there, you're looking at the mask, you're not looking at you're looking at kind of the surface image of things. You're not looking beneath the surface. You're not seeing all the things that these wealthy people are doing to help society. Which I thought that's how I took it. Actually, I did not take that as an SJW thing. I took that as a kind of a way of saying to people, these rich people are doing more kind of behind the scenes than you're aware of. Then you're criticizing them for basically, your perceived image. You're looking at the mask, not at the substance. And I thought that was more a kind of an anti woke scene. But of course, that might not have been so apparent in the movie. But I mean, you can't watch that scene and think that Bruce Wayne is doing nothing. Like you can't. No one could watch that and be in agreement with Bella Real in that scene because you've seen Batman going around fighting crime. You've seen the trouble that he's going through to catch the Riddler. No one would watch that and think that what she's speaking is truth. She is totally oblivious in that case. So to say that that is an SJW criticism of white people or whatever, I don't buy it. I think that was my interpretation was quite the opposite of that. So what did I like about the movie? Well, let me preface what I liked about the movie with saying that I just watched Taxi Driver for the first time about 2 days before I watched this new Batman movie. I'd never seen Taxi Driver. I'd heard of it. I'd seen it alluded to. I'd seen still images from it all over Facebook. Not all over Facebook, but enough times on Facebook that made me want to watch it. I didn't know what it was about when I watched it, so I was it was a totally new experience, fresh, and I really liked the movie. I thought it was very intriguing. I thought it was very captivating, that I was kind of hooked kind of from the beginning just by certain little cues that kind of said this character is kind of good. He's heading somewhere that is going to be interesting. And I liked the way it went. Now, when I was watching that movie, that it reminded me of Fight Club and the new Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix. And so it was kind of funny to have seen that and to be reminded of those two movies of Fight Club and the Joker going into seeing this because all four of these movies, the Taxi Driver, Fight Club, the Joker, and the Batman, they all have a kind of common thread. And to put it in very simple terms, it's about a man who is in an unstable place in his life, very mentally unstable, and people might be upset if I called the Joker a hero, but these four characters, I don't even know the names of all of them. Within Fight Club, I think the character's name, he doesn't even have a name in that movie, and but so in Taxi Driver, Fight Club, the Joker, and this new Batman movie, the main character is kind of this troubled individual who has this latent kind of hero within, who arises out of the chaos of this person's life, in a way that is, you might say, would not have happened if they were not in this place of instability. Now, I think it is probably good to point out that out of this chaos, the hero doesn't necessarily become a hero, as in the case with the Joker. In that movie, the Joker movie, you might say he is kind of a hero type. People might say he's an anti-hero, but from his perspective, at least, he is very much like the character from Taxi Driver, where he sees what he's doing as a righteous thing. He is helping to save the city. Which I think is important also in this movie, the Batman movie, between Batman and the Riddler, because the Riddler also is that same sort of character. He is kind of this mentally unstable, or a kid who suffered, who through his suffering ended up becoming this, as he sees it, a kind of purifier, a person who is going to purge society of what makes it corrupt and these sorts of things. But you see how they mirror each other in this movie, and you can see how one character went one way and one character went another way, out of the same sort of antagonistic events in their life. So that to me is interesting. I feel like, especially Batman, if any comic book character, Batman, I think deserves that treatment more than any of them. And I don't know why I think that way. I think part of it is just the symbolism, the fact that Batman lives in a cave and that he has a bat as his sigil. Because I associate the cave with like the unconscious mind, the subconscious mind, and so I see Batman as kind of being the one who dives into that, so to speak, metaphorically. And like I said, it grapples with the darkness. And the fact that he has a bat as his sigil, I think, is, to me, kind of significant, because bats can see in the dark. And as he states in this movie, he has become a nocturnal animal. And they don't... It's not really shown in this movie. You might say that in this movie he can't see in the dark, that he is still blind. But they don't use that word, I don't think. But that's kind of the way I see it. In this movie, Batman is still... He's not yet a bat, really. Because he is... People do say bats are blind, right? Blind as a bat. But bats can see. You know, their eyes don't work, but they can still see in the dark. And... he doesn't, as far as I can tell, he has not gotten that kind of second sight yet. In previous movies, Batman, or Bruce Wayne, he's a playboy. He is a very kind of, you might say, successful, kind of just man most people can never be. Kind of, he's on top of things. He has his shit together. He is, women like him. He's kind of a suave James Bond type character. And to me, that is not that appealing. And that is partly because in that case, he is... Maybe some men, that's their fantasy. That's kind of how they want to see themselves, is this kind of like, I'm in control here. I'm the shit kind of thing. But that places kind of the demons as external, totally external. That what he's grappling with is just everything outside of himself, which I don't really care for. So what appeals to me in movies most of the time is a character who is grappling with the demons on the inside. Which is one of the reasons why I don't like Superman movies either. Superman is very much a kind of infallible character. and that infallible characters to me are not very interesting. But if you look at those four movies that I just mentioned, Taxi Driver, Fight Club, The Joker, and this new Batman movie, they are kind of about these characters who are they're not just troubled. They are actually kind of fighting with themselves. They're going through the darkness. They're going through the underworld. They're going through hell, and that to me is interesting. That is that is what I want to see in a movie. I don't, I don't want to beat a dead horse. But I do. Of those four, I think that Fight Club probably makes it a little bit clearer than the other two, the Joker and Taxi Driver. Those two kind of go together, and then Fight Club and the Batman, I think, would kind of go together better because they are more about these two, kind of the two aspects of one person. So you could say that in the Batman movie, Batman is Tyler Durden, and Bruce Wayne is this, what I believe is just called the anonymous character. I don't know if that character actually has a name in Fight Club. Edward Norton's character, I believe he is just, I've seen that movie like 2 or 3 times, and I don't know what his name is. I don't think he has a name. But yeah, that is, I liked Fight Club for that reason, and I kind of like this Batman movie for that same reason. That you see this, and it's even pointed out in this movie. The Riddler points it out to Batman. Spoilers. That Batman is the real self and Bruce Wayne is the mask, and that's how it is in Fight Club. That Tyler Durden is the real self, and the anonymous guy, the other guy, he's the shell, he's the mask. But yeah, I do like fallible characters, which is another complaint I have against Ben Shapiro's review, which he seems to not like fallible characters. I like that Batman in this movie is portrayed as immature, that he doesn't know what's going on, that he's in some way out of his league, especially with the Riddler. The Riddler is pretty much in charge through the entire movie. He is leading Batman to accomplish things that he would not have accomplished otherwise. Batman at the beginning of this movie is basically he's just a street thug. Basically, he's a street fighter who goes around beating up low-level criminals. Guys who rob grocery stores or that kind of thing. People That's not part from the movie, but they do show him in a fight with a street gang who is initiating a new member. He beats up all of them, and so they show him with this kind of physical prowess, which is impressive and to the point of being unbelievable. But it is that's not enough. He's not here to be Superman. He's not. That's kind of what the point the movie makes is he's not here just to go around. His physical strength is not enough to for him to be the hero that he has to be. And his motivation of vengeance is not enough for him to be the hero that he has to be. And that is kind of one of the points that the movie makes. But I did like that the Riddler was kind of the one who is kind of leading him to kind of realize his potential in a way, which is not something that was quite obvious. It is very much like in The Wizard of Oz, where Dorothy and her companions, the Lion, Scarecrow, and the Tin Man, go to the wizard because they all want something. And so what does the wizard do? He sends them on a quest to retrieve the witch's broomstick, and through the quest that he sends them on, they all realize their potential. They all realize what it was they were looking for, except for Dorothy, of course. She doesn't realize it until later. But the lion shows his courage, the Tin Man shows his compassion, and the Scarecrow shows his intelligence through this quest. And in some ways, that's kind of what happens here with Batman, where he's walking down the yellow brick road, so to speak. He's being led down this path by the Riddler, who shows him kind of that the struggles that he's having in the beginning, because Batman complains in the beginning that he has been fighting crime for 2 years and it's just getting worse. But he's fighting at the lower level. He's fighting down here on the street level against just thugs and these kind of people, where the Riddler basically directs him to taking out the chief boss over the city. And when the Riddler points this out to him, he presents it as they were working together. He's like, you and I were on the same team. And Batman, he goes into a little bit of denial. He's like, no, you're living in your head, you're psycho. And it is kind of left, I guess, open to the viewer as to whether the Riddler is actually psychotic or whatnot. Really, the main difference between Batman and the Riddler is that the Riddler kills people. There's at least shown killing people, where Batman is not shown killing anyone. It's never clear what exactly he is doing with these people that he beats up. Like with the gang in the very beginning, did he kill any of these guys? It's not clear. Did he arrest them? He didn't. They don't show what happens. They just show him just kicking butt. And then you see guys laying on the ground, and then it kind of cuts to a new scene. But that really is the only difference between the two characters. That the Riddler is killing the people he sees as bad, and Batman is just beating them up. But they're really, which one is psychotic? I mean, it's not. There's no clear indication that Batman is sane. You could even argue that Batman in this movie is not sane, that he is very much mentally ill, and that the Riddler is in some ways kind of his Buddha, his guiding light. But that's not the way it's presented. I would say that perhaps the movie makers wanted to make it not seem that way. Perhaps they wanted to make it clear to the audience that this is not, the Riddler is not, he's not the Jesus in this story. He's not the Orpheus. He's just a kind of psychotic person who just happened to be leading Batman out of the cave. And but yeah, I thought that was interesting. I like that kind of thing. I like to see fallible characters grow. Yeah, I think that might be enough. I think maybe I've said enough on that subject. I did like the cinematography was great. I did like how so many of the scenes are very much paintings, not literally paintings, but they are. This is one of those movies like Blade Runner. What was the one movie I watched? Dune, Blade Runner, Dune. These are movies where you could put these movies on mute and just have them playing in the background, and they would be like a moving painting, in your room if you were like cleaning your room or working on something, and you just wanted something kind of, showing in a background kind of thing. This is one of those movies. You could just watch it and not listen to it and be kind of, like, this is a work of art. Yeah. I think I've made this long enough, so I'm gonna stop right there.